Coming up on The Sporting Chef.
Today on the show, I'm cooking quail. Michelle's cooking cheesesteak. We've got cooler coolers. C-Dub's making cornbread. Chris's Seabass. Melissa helps keep you warm. John McGannon's got more on coolers. And then there's Buddy.
What do you get when you find the best fish and game chefs? Cookbook authors, award winners, fishmongers, outdoor experts, and put them on the fastest half hour on outdoor television. Hosted by one of America's best-known wild game chefs, Scott Leysath, The Sporting Chef. Brought to you by Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Welcome to The Sporting Chef. I'm Scott Leysath. I've been hunting quail all my life, and we all know that finding wild quail these days is a bit of a challenge. I've found that the best quail hunting that I have encountered is in the southwestern U.S. I went to school in Arizona, still tons of quail there. California along the central coast has a lot of quail. A lot of us are destined to shoot pen-raised quail. The early release quail in Georgia, by the way, when you release them early, they tend to covey up and fly better than if you just put them out the day before. But enough about that. You will notice that with quail, when you pack them around in your game bag on a hot day, they tend to take on a bit of an aroma. What I like to do with my quail is to brine them for 2 or 3 hours in salt water, get the quail blood out, and it'll taste much better. Now, upon close inspection, you'll see that these quail were born without rib cages. That makes it really hard for them to fly. Actually, what this is a boned out quail. The only bones on there are the leg and the wings. You can stuff it without taking the bones out. It's just a little harder to eat. It takes a lot of quail to fill up a large person like myself. So I'm gonna make a sausage stuffing. This happens to be a rabbit rattlesnake sausage. Commercially made, it has rabbit, rattlesnake, pork. You can use any kind of sausage. So the sausage is gonna go over here on the Camp Chef square Dutch oven. All right, so along with the sausage and the stuffing, I've got some cut up bell peppers, I've got garlic, and I've got onion. And I see a lot of home chefs kind of struggling with how to cut an onion. Let me show you kind of the fast way to dice an onion. You start with it here, just make a few cuts this way, then you go down the top. Then just a few cuts here. You have a fast diced onion. If you want to make it really fine, just make your cuts right here really, really, really fine. I'm also going to throw some rosemary in the grill box to create a little aromatic smoke, but let me get this chopped up. I'm going to keep chopping my rosemary. Check on my sausage. Meanwhile, I want you to check out Michele Eichler, who's got a new take on a Philly cheesesteak.
What I'm going to make today is Philly cheesesteaks. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take my on-purpose leftovers and I'm just going to cut them really thin. Okay, so I have all of my meat sliced nice and thin. And this, of course, like I said, was steak that we had last night. So I did marinate it in my marinade that's in Fred's book. So we have some wonderful juice that was in there and we want to capture all of those flavors. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that over the top of it. And then, just like any Philly cheesesteak, you want the meat to be nice and juicy. So I always take some beef broth and add that to it. I also like to just put a little bit of soy sauce in there. Gives it just a little bit more flavor. I preheated my oven to 350. And I'm going to go ahead and set this inside. I'm going to go ahead and prepare my vegetables. And all this is onions and some peppers. I like to use different colored peppers. You can just use green peppers if you want. And after we get all our vegetables sauteed, we're going to serve this with some provolone cheese. And you can put it on either hoagie rolls or Kaiser buns. So now we've got all our vegetables ready. And now we'll go over to the stove and saute them with a little garlic and crazy salt and some nice olive oil. And then to season that a little bit more, instead of just plain salt and pepper, I'm going to use the Jane's mixed up salt. So we have our provolone cheese, our wonderful sauteed vegetables, our Kaiser buns, and our beautiful elk steak.
Fantastic. That's good. All right, Egg.
That was excellent.
Okay, so obviously Michele knows how to cook. That cheesesteak looks delicious. I've got my rabbit rattlesnake sausage browning over here, and I'm going to add some chopped up colored bell pepper. You can use any color, green bell peppers are fine. There's some chopped up garlic. I've got some onion and fresh rosemary. Once I get enough oil coming out of that rabbit rattlesnake sausage, it will help brown this. That's what I'm doing now. All right, that's gonna brown up. Meanwhile, I want you to check out how to keep your cooler cooler and have a little something to drink when you get to camp. You know, I like to maximize the room in my cooler, especially if I'm gonna go camping for a few days. If you take some water and freeze it in a zipper lock type bag first, the zipper lock bags, if you're gonna make those into your ice packs, they're going to leak. But after you've frozen them, if you put it into a food saver bag that'll give it a nice tight seal, you can use it as a cold pack in your cooler, and as it thaws, you have some really good drinking water. Or you can take something like lemonade and freeze the lemonade, use the lemonade as an ice pack, and what do you do when the lemonade thaws? That's right, you got a drink right here. Coming up, stuffing quail, Logan, Bachman, C-Dub, McGannon, and Buddy. Stay with me. Welcome back to The Sporting Chef. I'm Scott Leysath. I'm going to stuff some brined quail. And by brining, I just want to get that blood out, make them taste a little fresher, not taste like quail blood. These are semi-boneless quail. My stuffing is a rabbit rattlesnake sausage with garlic, onion, and peppers. And you basically just get a wad of it and start stuffing your quail, which sounds like a euphemism for something. Tuck the legs in the skin and it kind of holds it together a little bit better. So we'll do the Indian style there. And I will continue to stuff these quail. My quail are stuffed. I'm going to season them with some High Mountain poultry seasoning. It's really good on rabbit, the poultry rub. To the Camp Chef grill box I go. So I want to cook this on relatively low heat. You can't rush this. If you go too high heat, what you're going to have is right in the center, it's not going to be cooked all the way through. So take your time. I'm going to make a little vinaigrette to baste it with in just a little while. But first, I want you to check out Chris Logan, who has, as usual, a great recipe for fish.
Scott, we're going to cook a little white bass. This is not your garden variety wide mouth bass. This is a sport fish coming out of Baja. I left the skin on. To me, I like skin on pretty much all my fish. I'm going to just season it pretty simply with just Hawaiian sea salt, but then I'm going to add cracked black pepper to the pan. Anyhow, hot pan. Cracked black pepper. And I put a generous amount. Reason being, some of this is going to come off as I turn it. And with this preparation, all I'm going to do is, I've got some beautiful heirloom tomatoes. I just diced those, added some red onion, a little bit of fresh basil, a little sea salt, a little cracked pepper, and then I added a 18-year-old balsamic vinegar that was infused with black cherries and a little blood orange olive oil. Stuff you can find pretty much anywhere. Anyhow, it's my version of a nice side dish for a beautiful flaky fish. Okay, what I've done is I've turned this a couple times because of the thickness of the fillets. Basically, it's about medium rare right now. I'm going to add my lemon vinaigrette. This is a Meyer lemon vinaigrette. Zest, the juice, touch of kosher salt, touch of sugar to bring out the flavors, ground white pepper, and a neutral oil. I'm using sunflower oil. Here we go. That's kind of it. The garnish on a plate is just simple red onions that I pickled in sweet rice vinegar, a little bit of kosher salt, and again, a little bit of sugar to bring out those flavors. And again, this is just like a little bruschetta. I'm going to just hit this with a little micro cilantro. Scott, what do you think? $50 in your favorite restaurant?
Chris, as always, a great recipe. By the way, Chef Chris Logan has Creative Flavors Catering in San Diego. He's an incredibly talented chef, and he can load you up. I'm starting to get some color. They're starting to firm up. I wanted this to kind of firm up a little bit first before I flipped it. So I'm hoping this will help keep those legs in place before I give it a flip. I've got this side over here. The left side is hotter. So I'm going to take some rosemary, and you can take just the regular ornamental rosemary that you have in your garden, put it right on top. Just make sure that the ornamental rosemary hasn't been sprayed with pesticides. Close the lid. The whole idea here is that rosemary is eventually going to catch fire, create a bunch of smoke, and along with my stuffed quail, I'm going to put some peppers and onions on the grill also for color. Put a little olive oil and some of the High Mountain poultry seasoning on here also. So you look over the grill, you see all that smoke coming out? That's smoke from the rosemary that is now adding all that flavor to my quail. I'm gonna throw the onions and peppers on the grill right on top of that rosemary. I'm gonna season it with some of the High Mountain poultry seasoning and rub, and a little bit more on my quail. Close the lid before the rosemary catches on fire. And here's Melissa Bachman with something that's gonna warm you up. Hey, dream on.
Late season can be one of the best times of the year to hunt, but you gotta be able to stay warm and be able to stay out in those conditions. Now today, it's snowing, sleeting, but it should be a perfect hunting day. Now there's one trick that you can do, not necessarily bulk up to stay warm, but actually start thinking smarter. So what I use to stay warm is a variety of different things. First off, I love using the neck gaiter, always have. But with the Hot Mox neck gaiter, they have a slot that you can drop a hot hands in and slide this neck gaiter on, and it'll keep the warmth exactly where you need it. Now the other place you want to keep the warmth in, on your head. And this hat has a flap inside, another place to drop your heat source. Now you can leave it right inside on your head to keep you warm, or you can drop it down and have a second heat source on your neck, which can be helpful in some super windy conditions. Now the other thing that has a tendency to get cold when you're out there late season is your feet. Your feet can freeze really quickly. So Hot Mox has come out with a little bootie that's small enough that can fit right in your backpack. With this one, you simply open up the slot, drop your heaters in, and your toes will stay extremely warm all day. So there's no question, late season hunting can be some of the best times out there. But you want to stay warm? Figure out how to beat Mother Nature at her own game. Use an external heat source on the perfect locations, and you too can stay warm and have the great parts of a late season hunt.
More quail, C-Dub, my favorite wild game chef, and my good friend Buddy T. Next up on The Sporting Chef. Welcome back to The Sporting Chef. I'm Scott Leysath. We got a whole bunch going on today, starting with stuffed quail, and I'm gonna make a little vinaigrette to go on my stuffed quail. That's chopped garlic. This is orange juice concentrate. Orange juice concentrate I use as a sweetener often in place of sugar or honey. It just gives it a different dimension of flavor. This is just some cider vinegar. You can use red wine vinegar. This is some High Mountain garlic pepper, lemon juice. And while I'm whisking this so that the olive oil is emulsified into the vinaigrette, I want you to check out my buddy, C-Dub.
Okay, Scott, we're going to bake some cornbread today. We're going to use our smoke vault here, our Camp Chef smoke vault, to bake some cornbread. You know, when the food savers first come out, I use them just for packaging my meat, but I've quickly learned that I can package my dry ingredients for stuff when I'm going camping, and this is cornbread mix. Now in my dry mix here, I have all my dry ingredients, my cornmeal, my salt, my baking powder, my baking soda, about 2 cups of buttermilk for our liquid, and in that we're going to break 2 eggs. Just where we pour it in, we're going to add a little bit of vegetable oil, just a couple tablespoons, and we're going to pour that in, stir it up. It won't take very long, and then we're going to make a nice batter. And what we've got over here in our smoke vault already, we've got some pans preheating. So we're going to go over here, and we've got our a cornbread wedge pan, and a skillet. And I'm using my pliers instead of my hot pad. That just seems to work as good. We want to keep our oven doors shut. We want to spray these. You can see how that's starting to bubble. That's just the way we want it. We're going to set these back in our outdoor oven, AKA our Camp Chef smoke vault. We want this one on the top, this one on our second shelf, and we're going to keep the door shut. And in about 20 to 25 minutes, we're going to have our cornbread right there. Okay, and there's our cornbread in our cordon wedge pan. We're using our Camp Chef griddle here as something to keep our protect our table. And there's our cornbread right there, baked in a Camp Chef smoke vault. We're going to get that door shut. Those little wedges, that's just how they're going to come out, just like that. A little butter. There's our honey. And see how our bottoms turned out? That is just perfect. And that's why we preheated our bottoms, or our pans, before we turned our batter into them. We wanted that nice, crispy bottom. So there's cornbread. Cornbread's done, Scott. There you go.
My vinaigrette is ready. C-Dub did his thing. I'm going to spoon a little bit of this vinaigrette right on top of the quail. And while the quail are absorbing all the delicious flavors from my vinaigrette, I want you to check out John McGannon, who has another little something about coolers you might not know.
One of the biggest challenges we have when we're out in the field harvesting our meats is how do we cool it down? And there's a term in the food service industry called the danger zone, and that is between 45 degrees and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Unfortunately for us, these animals that we harvest are right in the middle, and that is where bacteria grows the fastest. A cooler is not a cooler. A cooler is a thermos. It doesn't know if it's supposed to trap the heat in or trap the cold in. So when you're out there and you're harvesting a deer or an antelope, make sure they're cooled before they go into this cooler, and then pack them with ice, because once it goes inside of this, with ice or not, it's insulated and the heat cannot escape, and you cannot get that meat out of the danger zone. There's been many a person who has left Wyoming and coming back to California only to find 3 days later that his antelope was horrific in smelling like somebody's old laundry. It had nothing to do with the antelope. It had to do with a cooler is not a cooler.
All right. As soon as I put the vinaigrette on here, it started to flare up and I got some great smoky flavor. This quail is really close. I'm going to let it continue to cook just for another minute or two. While I'm doing this, I want you to listen to what Buddy does with coconut and shrimp. Buddy, do your thing.
Okay, it's Buddy T. We're going to talk making some coconut shrimp today. Got some really fine Gulf of Mexico shrimp. Gonna run them in some cornstarch. Got some egg whites here. And this here's a combination of coconut and then panko breadcrumbs. They've been dusted. Put that in here. Stir that around a little bit. And it's gonna go in that coconut. You just kind of gotta mash that around on them a little bit. And you want that coating to set a little while. I'll put that on this cookie sheet. Alright, well we got these things that done set up in the fridge for a little while. Coating's real sticky on there. We tested the oil. You know, you're gonna want to fry it about 350, 375, something like that. You're gonna fry them till they're nice and golden brown. So you get them a little bit gold. Whenever it comes out of there, that's when I take that high mountain seasoning. I like this Cajun campfire. I'm gonna put a little bit of dusting on that. And then what I got here is some apricot jelly and some peach jelly. That's what we like to do with them. Put a little bit of that jelly on there. Go get you some of that Gulf of Mexico shrimp. It's better than any other stuff, I promise you. Butter Tea, we'll see you next week.
You'll see what this looks like when it's all piled up on a plate in a minute or two. Stay tuned. All right, removing quail from the Camp Chef grill box. And this comes with a warning. What a lot of people do with their quail is what they do with a lot of their game, and it's a bad thing. What happens is they overcook it. When quail is cooked, right at the thigh joint, it's going to be just still a little bit pink when you take it off. This is going to continue to rest for a few minutes. It's going to keep cooking. You've got the heat from the sausage. It's coming right off the grill. If you just covered it up with a little foil, if you're worried about it, but I'm not worried about it. If you see a recipe where it says cook your quail until the juices run clear, there aren't any juices. It's okay if that juice is still a little bit pink. I'm going to drizzle a little bit more of the vinaigrette over the top. And as you can imagine, you know, this just tastes really good. And if you don't happen to have any quail around, you could do the same thing with some chicken breasts that you've just butterflied. Do the same kind of stuffing with it. Just don't overcook your quail. I'm Scott Leysath, the Sporting Chef. Special thanks today to Michele Eichler, Chef Chris Logan, John McGannon, C-Dub, Buddy T, and of course, Melissa Bachman. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Don't forget to check out sportingchef.com. Videos, recipes, how-tos, lots of segments from all the people that you see on the show. And my friends, Michael David, which just happened to make one of my favorite wines. I know you're not supposed to drink red wine with quail, whatever. Drink the wine you like with the quail you like, and we'll see you next week.